In the previous videos, you have been exposed to the various tools dealing with timeline-based compositing. This layer-based approach is good for a lot of tasks, but sometimes you need more advanced compositing tools to take on challenging design and visual effects tasks. In this video, you will look at the procedural node-based compositing workflow known as Connect Effects. New in Smoke 2013, Connect Effects lets you connect your visual effects to your editing like never before. To access Connect Effects, you select a segment in the sequence and either click the Effects button or right-click to choose Add Effect. This brings up the Effects ribbon and you can choose Create Connect Effects. You are now transported from the timeline into the Connect Effects environment, which some of you might know as node compositing. For those of you who have never seen anything like this before, procedural node compositing is a workflow where you connect bunches of effects in a branch-like structure that come together to form the final composited result. The advantage of Connect Effects is that you can visually follow the journey your images take through the various effects processes which form their final result. This means that you can spot problems easier through the effects connections, and there is more than one way to tackle a challenge. This also means that you can reorder the effects in any way you want. The first thing to point out is that your sequence segment has been loaded as a source node which is connected to the Connect Effects output node, basically the input and output of your composite. The result of the Connect Effects output is what you will see in the sequence. If you select a multi-layer composite in the sequence and enter into Connect Effects, all the segments will be available as source nodes and all their timeline effects tools are translated into nodes and composited together. Looking to the left of the screen is the familiar media library. The one purpose of having the media library in the Connect Effects environment is that you can grab any source clip or multiple clips and drag them directly into the Connect Effects schematic. This clip can now be composited as part of the Connect Effects branch. A new section also appears in the media library called CFX Current Setup. This enables you to monitor the sources that you use in the Connect Effects environment, as well as drag them into a folder if you want to use them somewhere else. If your interface feels a bit cramped, you can hide the media library by using the pull-down menu. Earlier I used the term Connect Effects Schematic. This refers to the view used to see the branches of nodes connected together. The other default viewer is the result view. This shows the output of each node when you select it in the Connect Effects schematic. The bar beneath the viewers is a toolbar containing the viewer controls. You can look at Connect Effects using several viewers up to a maximum of 4. For example, you could split up the interface to see the Connect Effects schematic, a particular node result, and the end result all at the same time. You can choose the viewer number and configuration, as well as the setup as to what you will see in each viewer through the View menu. Just remember to select the viewer by clicking on it and then adjust the View menu. Notice that the selected viewer has a thicker outline. The next menu is the Tools menu that will dynamically update with different cursor functions depending where you are and which node you are working with. Finally, 2 important buttons are located next to the Layout pull-down menu. The first button is the Reset Layout button. Clicking this button will reset the Connect Effects interface to the default layout. The second button is the Effects nodes. This button allows you to toggle between the main Connect Effects node bin and the current node you are working in. Beneath the middle toolbar is a light gray bar containing the more general Connect Effects functions. This includes the player and time bar controls, grids and view menus, load and save buttons, and last but certainly not least, render and exit Connect Effects. The remainder of the screen at the bottom is dedicated to the controls that dynamically change as you move through the ConnectFX environment. The starting point for any ConnectFX composite is looking at the Effects Node menu where you are presented with the ConnectFX node bins. The large node bin is where you find all your nodes for tasks and effects creation. There are a lot of nodes to choose from, and you can scrub the bin from left to right to reveal them all. To make it easy to find a specific tool, simply type the first letter of the tool on your keyboard and it will be highlighted in the node bin. So for example, I will type C and then I will drag the color correction node into the ConnectFX schematic. You could also double-click on the node for a faster action. To insert the color correction node into the existing connection of the branch, simply hover the node over the connection and release the cursor. To pull a node out of an existing connection, hold Ctrl-Option and drag the node out. I'll reinsert the node back into the branch and we'll have a closer look at these colors surrounding the node. To understand the structure of the node, you need to bear in mind that the processes of the compositing branch always travel from left to right. So looking at a typical node in ConnectFX, the left side of the node is always for inputs, and the right side of the node is always the outputs. The color correction node, for example, has 3 inputs and 1 output. The input red color typically represents a front or foreground. The input green color typically represents a back or background. The input blue color typically represents the matte or alpha channel for the input of the node. This allows you to key or limit the region of a specific effect. The single output from the color correction node is a front output, or better known as the result output. You can also get a blue output from a node indicating an alpha or matte output as well. These inputs and outputs will vary depending on the node, but this is the general gist of how the nodes are laid out. To access any of the node's parameters or tools, double-click on them and the bottom interface will change based on your selection. For example, selecting the source node displays a basic menu, resizing menu, and color management menu, whereas selecting the color correction node will display the color corrector toolset. One part of the controls I would like to bring your attention is the left side of the screen. This is where you can access the main ConnectFX preferences, the selected node preferences, the animation editor, and finally the timing view. The timing view displays all your sources in ConnectFX as segments in a timeline view. The purpose of this is that you can see and manipulate the starting time of each source. For example, if you wanted a specific source to start at a different time in the composite, you could set up the timing here by adjusting the offset slider. A few more tips before you start experimenting with ConnectFX. Earlier you saw how to insert a node into an existing connection in a branch. If you were joining a node into a branch, you could drag a connection from the output to another input of a node. To break a link, simply click and draw a line across the connection. A faster way to connect the nodes is to kiss them. Hold Shift and drag the nodes towards each other. When the outputs and inputs touch, the connection forms between them. To move nodes around the ConnectFX schematic, use the on-screen keyboard shortcut and drag a box around the nodes. Whichever nodes are selected can now be moved around with the cursor. Right-clicking on any node or a multiple selection will bring up a pop-up menu with duplicate, reset, delete, as well as node grouping and context settings. Once you are done, you can press Exit CFX and you'll be returned back to the sequence. You can press Render at this point, but at any time you can return back into ConnectFX via the editor and continue to tweak your effects. In the next few videos, we'll have a walkthrough of Action, Autodesk Smoke's 3D Compositor.